for joining us. For those utilizing ASL interpretation services, our two interpreters are Andrea Lamberton and Cheryl Leppel-Huber. Instructions on how to pin their video will be found in the chat. For those utilizing closed captioning CART services, instructions on how to utilize that and the link are also found in the chat. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Mohammed Khalid, and I'm the interim chair of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. I would like to call the CCRB March Public Board meeting to an order. Thank you for joining us. I would like to begin today's meeting by wishing everyone a happy Women's History Month. In honor of Women's History Month, I would like to acknowledge the passing of Dr. Hazel Dukes. Her unwavering commitment to civil rights inspired generation of activists and empowered countless individuals to fight for equality and fairness. The CCRB strives to embody Ms. Dukes' dedication to justice and accountability through thorough and impartial civilian oversight of alleged police misconduct. Last month, Charlie Brown Waynes submitted her resignation to the board. Ms. Brown joined the board in February 2023 as a police commissioner designee. Ms. Brown Waynes' career in the New York City Police Department, where she became one of the first African-American women to serve as a captain and deputy inspector, gave her unique foundation for her service on the board. Among other qualities, her expertise in investigation and police community relation made her a vital asset to the agency, and she will be surely missed. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Shireen Crawford to the board. Ms. Crawford is a mayoral appointee and is the Chief of Staff for the Center for Justice Innovation. I am confident Ms. Crawford's extensive experience in the legal and policy field will prove to be invaluable to the board. Would board member please introduce yourself now with Ms. Crawford?
Thank you. Thank you for the welcome. Shireen Crawford. I am, it's my first board meeting, so thank you. I'm grateful and excited to be here on the board. I've had a career dedicated to public service and public safety and social justice. So looking forward to imparting that experience in my experience here on the board. I believe with that I have a lot to offer, but also a lot to learn. So thank you.
Thank you. June, start.
June Northern, I'm mayor appointee for Brooklyn.
Pat Smith, mayoral appointee, Manhattan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Joseph Puma. I'm the city council appointee from Manhattan, and welcome to board member Crawford.
My name is John Dorsch. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the executive director of the agency.
Esmeralda Simmons, I'm the public advocate appointee. I hail from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
Frank Dwyer, I'm a police commissioner designee.
A. Hogan, City Council designee for Southeast Queens.
Joe Fox, I'm a police commissioner designee.
Thank you all.
Is there anyone joining us online, Nikai?
They're still logging in.
But that's not John Siegel's name there? I can squint down to 2020.
Yeah, there is. I see him too. Herman.
John Siegel, you're unmuted. Go for it.
Yes. So we'll come back to John after Dr. Khalid's remarks and see if we can get it fixed.
There he is.
The next
There
on
he
the
is.
agenda is he? Welcome, John.
You're on
You're
mute.
muted, John. John, you have to unmute on your end, I think.
If you see a down arrow next to the mute button, you might be able to adjust the microphone setting, no?
Someone will reach out to you, John, and we'll figure out how to get this fixed, and we'll let you introduce yourself later. Dr. Cleat, if you want to continue.
Yes, okay. So, are there any changes or correction to the January board meeting minutes? If yes, we will make the appropriate changes and review the corrected minute next month. If none, do we have a motion to approve the January board meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second, oh, thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
As those opposed, the minutes are approved. Are there any changes or correction to the February minutes, board minutes? If yes, note that we will make the appropriate changes and review the corrected minutes next month. If none, then I have a motion to approve the February board minutes. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. As all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the minutes are approved. Last month, the board discussed revising agency rules to require civilian testify under oath to report alleged misconduct. Similar issues were later discussed in an OPED, so I would like to revisit this matter now. It is certainly true that NYPD officers deserve efficient and timely review of misconduct cases. However, it is equally true that the New Yorkers deserve a resource where they can report abuse of power without fear of penalty or retaliation. Currently, the civilian affirms that the content of the statement they gave to the CCRB are true. To threaten civilian with the perjury charges would only work against the overall goal of the police. Accountability and alienate New Yorkers in their process, as many individuals who experience police misconduct may fear retaliation or distrust in the system. The threat of prosecution would serve to discourage and valid complaints, not just false ones. Yesterday, Executive Director Darsh and I testified in front of the City Council about the agency budget. It was an honor to advocate for the agency and discuss many accomplishments the CCRB has achieved in the context of fiscal constraint and historically high complaint levels. We requested $44.5 million and authorization for 397 personnel, which is an increase of just under $17 million, and for 150 positions from the previous budget. To support this request, I testified to the following points. The agency received 5,709 complaints in 2024, which is the highest number of complaints received in single year in the past 12 years. The CCRB had to close 22.5% of those complaints without investigation due to budget constraint. The recent expansion of agency jurisdiction has resulted in additional complaints and underscored the need for additional personnel. CCRB investigation quality has improved due to technological advancement and enhanced investigator training, but requires more funding to maintain. Use of body camera footage enhances investigation accuracy, but adds workload. 7,530 hours of body-worn camera footage reviewed in 2024. need for 107 additional investigators, and timely promotion to retain talent. CCRB is essential in public safety, accountability, and civilian oversight. Without adequate funding, agency ability to fulfill this mandate is severely compromised. We remain hopeful that the City Council will recognize the agency need and fulfill our request, and in doing so, invest in effective and independent civilian oversight. I will now ask Executive Director Jonathan Dosh to give us all the agencies update. John?
Thank you, Dr. Khalid. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the agency staff, I'd also like to welcome Ms. Crawford to the board. And I'd like to thank Ms. Brown on a personal note for her kindness and guidance while she was on the board, which I hope will continue. And she was a great board member and will be sorely missed. As requested at the February board meeting, I asked our general counsel to look into the process of changing our procedures to require civilians to swear an oath under penalty of perjury when filing complaints of alleged misconduct. To change the current policy, which is to have civilians affirm that they are telling us the truth without the penalty of perjury, the board must go through the full process of amending agency rules. The determination of a complaint's disposition is based on the disposition of all of the allegations in the complaint. Substantiated means that the conduct occurred and was misconduct. If even one allegation is substantiated in the complaint, we close the entire complaint as substantiated. Within guidelines means that the conduct occurred but was not misconduct. If all of the allegations in the complaint are closed as within guidelines, we close the complaint as within guidelines. Unable to determine means that the agency was unable to determine if the alleged conduct occurred or if that conduct was misconduct. Officer unidentified means that the agency was unable to determine who the subject of the alleged misconduct was. Unfounded means that the alleged misconduct did not occur. If a complaint has 8 allegations and one of them is unfounded, while the remainder of the allegations are within guidelines, the complaint will be closed as unfounded. As I stated earlier, within NYPD guidelines means the officer's actions were deemed lawful or in compliance with the patrol guide, not that the incident did not happen. In 2024, of all fully investigated complaints, 21% were substantiated, 34% were within NYPD guidelines, 20% were unfounded, 18% were unable to determine, and 7% were officer unidentified. To dig deeper into the unfounded complaints, less than half, or 8% of the fully investigated complaints, had only unfounded allegations. Regardless of what the disposition is, it is impossible to determine the disposition of a complaint without an investigation. I agree with Dr. Khalid that using perjury charges to threaten civilians would deter legitimate complaints. I'd also like to echo Dr. Khalid in saying it was an honor to sit beside him yesterday and represent the agency at the Public Safety Committee hearing. Budget season is long, but we remain optimistic that OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, will consider our needs and fulfill our requests so that we can better serve our fellow New Yorkers. In fact, since Dr. Khalid met with Budget Director Jiha last week, 8 promotions, including some that have been pending for approximately 1 year, were approved. That's news to a lot of people because it came in very late today. Our office is open for walk-in complaints, but it is also possible to file complaints online at nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. That's nyc.gov/CCRB COMPLAINT. By telephone at 1-800-341-2272, by dialing 311 or by tagging the agency on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. For those wishing to speak during the public comment section of today's meeting, we ask you keep your questions and comments to 4 minutes. If anyone here today wishes to file a complaint, we have 2 investigators on hand and ready to take new complaints. The investigators on call this afternoon are Emma Stidehar and Rob Bryan. Brenia Feliciano is also here from the Civilian Assistance Unit. Thank you, Dr. Khalid.
I just want to add that I want to really thank, it was a very cordial meeting with the budget director, Mr. Jia, and he listened to our concern and he said that please stay in touch and we'll be very happy to help you because the agency needs the help. And so I thank him publicly that he was very cordial and for his input for us was very, very great. Any question the board has so far?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
First of all, I want to commend you and John Darsh, outstanding performance at the city council yesterday. You were knowledgeable, passionate, and patient with the city council. I thank you very much. Great performance. In terms of Charlene, are we allowed to discuss the terms of her departure?
I think that would be
Inappropriate.
inappropriate to do in the public meeting.
Okay. All right. Anyway, I commend her, thank her. I mean, dedicated her life to both the police department and to the CCRB. And I thank her. In terms of the question about testimony under oath, I am stuck with the problem that we are in 2024, we received more than 5,600 complaints. And in 2024, we substantiated 764 complaints against police officers. This is a testament to the dedication, the hard work of the staff and the board members. But we are spending an enormous amount of our time clearing police officers. But again, what's out there is 5,600 complaints, the cops are out of control. And I think what we have to give some emphasis to, 764 were substantiated. Do not pretend to have an answer to how we can get those numbers. Not that we should substantiate more complaints against police officers, but why that 5,600 exist, I suspect that there's a significant reason. Is because right now, a person makes a complaint to the CCRB. They get an appointment for a phone conversation, mostly phone conversation, occasional in person, and they undertake a 30 to 60-minute interview, which is recorded. And at the end of that interview, 30 to 60 minutes, the investigator asks the complainant, and I've reviewed them, and sometimes they forget to ask the complainant, do you swear or affirm that what you said is true? The complainant says yes, because they've just spent 30 to 60 minutes on the phone answering questions. They say yes. My suggestion is that John and Dr. Khalid, yesterday when you approached the city council, the very first thing you had to do was stand and raise your right hand and swear that the testimony you were about to give was the truth, the whole truth, nothing but. You had to swear an oath before you testified before the city council yesterday. I don't think either one of you is a perjury threat, but you had to do that. I think that the complainant, before they offer their statement, should be asked to swear an oath that what they're about to say is true. I would prefer that there be some reminder that it's against the law to offer false testimony under oath. But I mean, that's why we negotiate, and that's why we come to an answer. But I would strongly feel that we are better served if people swear an oath before they give this testimony. The oath is being recorded. They are, and again, I don't know that we're ever going to go down the road and prosecute people for lying to the CCRB, but in the 60 to 100 cases I review every month, I find a significant number of cases where the person obviously lied. And, you know, there should be a way to curb that. There should be a way to add to the credibility of this agency that what we're doing, that when we substantiate a case against a police officer, it's built on solid facts. I would ask my colleagues on the board, just for the next couple months, just keep that in mind as you're reviewing cases. Look at a case, and when you find significantly unfounded, when you find someone says, the police officer used a racial slur and threw me to the ground, and the body-worn camera footage says that just never occurred. You know, if that person were required to testify under oath before they made that allegations, would they have not made it? Would we all be better off to not have to deal with that case? I ask my colleagues, just for the next couple months, keep in mind as you're looking at cases, especially cases when there are significant unfounded allegations, could that have been curbed if the oath was given more seriously, with more emphasis at the beginning of testimony? Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce John Siegel. John, would you introduce yourself?
John, you're still muted for some reason. It looks like it's on our end. Can we unmute him?
I'm requesting to unmute John. If you could acknowledge or try to do the
John, can you try and unmute on your end?
at the bottom.
Oh,
Come I hear?
yeah.
Okay. My apologies. I apologize. John Siegel, mayoral appointee. I am in attendance, and I wanted to respond. Look, we all know from experience the CCRB can't win, right? The very same people who think that we substantiate too many charges against officers are now complaining that we have too many unfounded claims. So we're getting kicked in both directions from the same people, but we know this is a thankless task, so be it. I'm very strongly opposed to the idea of administering oaths for testimony at CCRB for 3 reasons. First, the suggestion by Mr. Smith that the reason for so many complaints must be that there are false complaints ignores recent history and ignores our caseload. We are reviewing civilian complaints against a police agency that within recent memory was found liable for unconstitutional policing by the Southern District of New York. Those practices set back police community relations a generation in this city. And we all know from the testimony we see and what we used to hear from when we were able to do local community meetings, the level of mistrust that occurs that's reflected in the complaints that we receive. There's a lot of reasons for unsubstantiated complaints, including that policing is difficult and the police officers within their authority are sometimes required to do things that citizens and communities view as harmful and abusive. And it's our job to sort those out. So the rate of substantiated complaints versus the number of complaints we receive, to me, is indicative of nothing other than the broader problems of police community relations. Secondly, the right to petition the government is a fundamental right. It's enshrined in the First Amendment to the Constitution. At common law and through today, if somebody provides information to a government agency that information provision is privileged. Sometimes it's absolutely privileged. It's always qualifiedly privileged. And to reverse those protections, to impose a oath requirement only for complaints against police officers, the only municipal employees who are permitted to use force and sometimes deadly force, is really, to me, it's just an un-American proposal. It's offered for the express purpose of reducing the number of complaints. So it's clear the intention. Thirdly, the statement that we have complaints where citizens obviously lied, I reject. There may be some, although we don't make that inquiry, and that's a very different inquiry than what we make to resolve the cases. But police officers do all sorts of things within guidelines that civilians don't view as appropriate. And that's our job, is to sort those out. So I'm vehemently opposed to this proposal. I actually don't know why it keeps coming up, because I think what we ought to be doing is advocating for the ability of this board to get the resources, to get the access timely to video and the rest that will enable us to do our job more quickly. And I view this whole proposal as a really, at best, a distraction, and at worst, something more harmful. So I thank you for your time and the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, John.
And Esmeralda Simmons, I'm glad that, Mr. Smith, that you brought this up again. I was very alarmed at receiving and reading an op-ed in the New York Post that mimicked your testimony at last month's hearing, almost to a T, and that put the emphasis on the Civilian Complaint Board on clearing police officers. I differ. The purpose of this board, and I have been an advocate for this board since before 1990, before Dinkins was even in office, when I worked on making it with others, obviously, all civilian, I was advocating for this board because we wanted civilians to be able to make complaints about police officers when they were not following the law, when they were using excessive force, when they were discriminating, and other more serious issues. To turn the purpose of this board around so that we think that our job is to clear the police officers as soon as possible, or to clear the police officers, is to miscue what we're here to do. We're here to listen to the complaints of the people who file it, the New Yorkers. New Yorkers have a right. And I'm very happy that this board is here and that the fabulous staff are willing and able to go through 5,600 cases. That says volumes. All those people thought that something was wrong with policing in New York. I think the fact that we're able to hear those cases, what we can hear, and that we adjudicate them very, very well, I should say. And I'm talking about the staff, the investigators, the amount of work that goes into all of this, because people need to know that their voices are being heard. Now, the fact that I'm delighted that so many police officers are cleared. That means that there's not as many unlawful acts occurring. But the fact that we had 700 and more than 700 means that there are serious problems that continue with police community relations and what the police think is lawful and what is in fact lawful. And people are hurt. People are hurt behind it. We need to realize that this agency is about civilian complaints adjudicated by civilians whose emphasis is in looking at whether or not New Yorkers were treated correctly by police officers. We honor police officers as much as you do, but our job is to listen to the complaints of the civilians. And we should not make that more onerous and threatening by putting them under the threat of perjury. Unnecessary. We're able to do our job without it. No harm, no foul. Our job is to deal with citizens and residents of New York who have civilian complaints. Ergo, the Civilian Complaint Review Board. I think we should not spend any more time discussing it. We respect your opinion, but no, we are not. I am not going to take your advice to start looking at cases from that perspective. I will continue to look at cases to see whether police officers have followed the law or not.
Anybody else has any question?
I think you,
Yes, this is for a matter of record. One, this has become laborious, both laborious and redundant.
Thank you.
We need to put to a vote soon that this does not come up again in front of the public. You know, and if we have those particular conversations, they are not coming sometimes to the shock of other board members. The police commissioner, Tish herself, said that the police department has enormous problems and that she needs to look at it and then go accordingly on how to do it from the police angle. Now, I also want to say that as a board member, I have never looked at a case about clearing anyone. I looked at a case and looking at facts, seeing what facts are being withheld within the patrol guy and within the law, and I vote accordingly. So we have to be very careful, right? That if we come here and all the things that have happened in the years 4 or 5 decades that we become a board that says we're saving any particular population, that we have to be unbiased, that we have to look at these facts, and like shout out to my sister Charlene and the great big articulations that we had with Helen on those Tuesday mornings about making sure that we were not putting our personal views into looking at the case. And that's all. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Just to clarify a factual, this is not an op-ed. I issued a statement at the public meeting last month. I shared that statement with the board. I shared that statement with the media. Someone at the other media disregarded. Someone at the New York Post, who was on the editorial board, who is a former state assembly member, who is a Democrat, and who is a person of color. Just, I wanted to get that all out there so there's no assumption that, Rupert Murdoch was doing this. That person wrote that editorial. That person, yes, took my statement. Yes, based on that, they came back and reviewed the board meeting. And based on that, they wrote that editorial. You all heard my statement. You saw my statement. You were all here part of the discussion. But Michael Benjamin at the New York Post wrote that editorial. I did not write it. It was not my opinion. Well, I do agree with it, but just to be clear, I was not running around writing editorials in the newspapers.
You did supply them with the information.
I did.
Thank you.
And I shared.
And I'm not going to do an interrogation here, okay?
No, you all got the information. It was done at a public meeting. So that's how democracy works. Thank you.
Let me add something to it that we certainly, not the staff, not the board members, we don't have a crystal ball that we are looking at it, whether this complaint is coming in was false, whether it's fake. The only way is the complaint comes in, we have to investigate it. We find that this is a proper complaint, we investigate it, and if we see that police officer has not done anything, it's unfounded, so it's a process that we are going through. We would never know that whether it's a fake complaint, as it is. So my question is that none of us has a crystal ball to look at that. Oh, this complaint is coming, which is really, really the complainant is filing a false complaint. We would never know that. Our job, the title is Civilian Complaint Review Board. This title is not New York City Police Department.
Right.
So we have to look at the interest of the public and be fair, impartial with the police department. No doubt about it. This is our job. We are mandated to do that. And I would really appreciate the fact that anything the paper writes or whoever writes this, ultimately it's us that we are responsible. If there are mistakes in our, we'll correct it. We are all here to do the right job for the city of New York, for the public. So I really appreciate that, the fact that going to the paper and writing something which is, in my opinion, is not true. We don't only substantiate a person has no camera, or timing wise, the camera was not started or did not give the card. The police officer never gave a card. That's one of the factors. There are other factors involved in it. The force, abuse of authority, so many other things are involved. So I would really appreciate that any matter going to the press, which I have no problem with that, but it should be discussed among us, and we discuss this thing, signing perjury document. We have a general counsel. I asked him, requested him to please give me your opinion on it. And I was given the opinion that we cannot do that. It's not right for the public. We cannot punish the public that, by saying that, hey, we're going to be punishing you if you're wrong. It doesn't work that way. John, you want to add something?
So just 3 quick points. First of all, Esmeralda, respectfully, while the board did receive 5,663 complaints in 2024, we had to close almost 1,500 of them because of the strategic resource allocation decisions. And so while I speak for the staff, I'm sure that we want to investigate all the complaints that are within our jurisdiction that we receive. It's just not possible. And there are other reasons why complaints might not be fully investigated. Sometimes people withdraw their complaints. Sometimes we're unable to follow up with a complainant or an alleged victim to get their full statement. And so we, in 2024, only fully investigated 2,551 complaints, of which we substantiated 908 of them, in which 1,728 members of service had discipline record. So even though it was 908 complaints that were substantiated, it was 1,728 members of service who this board determined committed misconduct. And then finally, just to clarify one thing, Dr. Khalid, this board could change the rules. It is within your power to go through the rulemaking process and change the rules. Dr. Khalid asked for the general counsel's opinion about whether it was appropriate to do it, and that was the answer Matt gave. But it is possible to change the rules.
Thank you. Anybody? Yes, Frank.
A couple of thoughts. One is, it was suggested a few minutes ago that we should make a motion or vote that this topic not be raised again. There's a trial going on in federal court, not a trial, hearing going on in federal court in Manhattan today about what can be heard and what cannot be heard. But I think it's very potentially dangerous anytime we start telling board members what issues they can raise or not raise. So I would recommend we not take on censorship as our way. The second thing I would say is an issue has been raised. One option has been offered, which is to make people swear to things. And that's been strongly pushed back by several members. but this hasn't been embraced as an opportunity to examine the process of intake and see if it could be improved on. And I would think a more collegial way to do this would be to embrace the possibility that there might be a way of doing this other than how we do it that makes very clear the importance and the significance or whatever the case may be, and gets to statements that are more accurate in some cases. I've certainly seen cases that were multiple films of, and people allege that things were done to them, like being thrown to the ground, being called racial epithets, and the multiple films make very clear that it didn't happen, and the investigators found them. But I would think there's a way for this board to embrace this as an opportunity to review our process rather than adopting a dialectic approach that there is only take an oath or don't take an oath.
So I just want to clarify, there are a lot of legal definitions about what taking an oath means. And before a civilian gives their statement, we inform them that they are going to be asked to swear or affirm to the truth of their statement. And then at the end of the statement, we ask them to affirm. So I think Frank's point about trying to always improve the agency and take opportunities to improve our process is well taken. But I also think that it's important that we look at the reality of what our process is now too. And so I just, in the same way that when I told the state of New York I had sold my car and that it was no longer mine, and so I didn't have to register it anymore, which meant I could return my plate and surrender my insurance and stop paying hundreds of dollars for something I no longer owned. I clicked on the thing that said, I affirm I'm telling the truth, and moved on with my day. And to think that in order that there is something that needs to be more than that, and more than what we do now, it strikes me as just incongruous with what the data tells us, which is that 22% of the complaints that we received last year were unfounded. And of those complaints, only at less than half of them, or 8% of the fully investigated complaints, only had unfounded allegations. And so I'm willing to, and I meet weekly with the investigations leadership. Like, we are always looking at ways to improve how our agency works. And I take your point about it, but I don't know that the data suggests this is the area that we need to improve on.
Can I say something? So, and this is, hopefully is the last comment, but the police officers have a body worn camera and they get to view it before testifying. A civilian doesn't walk around with a body worn camera. So what happened to me a year ago, 30 days ago, I may not remember all the facts, and it may not come out the way it's supposed to or whatever. But we don't have the technology as a civilian that a police officer do. And then before they come in to talk to an investigator or anybody else, they are allowed to view that body worn camera to refresh their memory. So to say that someone is not telling the truth, it's their version of the truth. I might not have been thrown down, but something happened to me. You understand? So I think that we should be very careful about the things that we're saying and what we're trying to hold a civilian to, because we're not doing the same thing with a police officer. We should not let them view their body worn camera and then let them remember what happened to them, what happened 30 days ago, a year ago, whatever it is. And then we're all on the same playing field. That's it.
And I just want to say this, I don't know if it needed to be said, but I need to say it. 7% officers go unidentified, right? So if there's ever gonna be, we start having conversations about how to better stuff, okay, why doesn't the NYPD go after these officers that we can identify? Okay, and then there's a particular officer that does a particular crime, we have something, does a particular misconduct, and then this officer retires. Okay, why not let them retire until this thing is solved? But what happens, those charges go away when they retire. So we could have sit down here for like 5 days in a row.
Or resign.
Or resign, yeah, exactly, resign or retire. So we can sit down here for 7 months about how to make things better. But if we don't give up both ends of the spectrum, how to correct things, it looks like we're being very biased if we only looking at what civilians should do.
Thank you. Any other questions anybody has? If none, I would like to ask the Director of Outreach, Jahi Rose, to
How undramatic.
Raise your right hand.
Look at what review board. I hate to say it. Of its type in the nation.
How's everyone? I'm Jahad Rose, the Director of Outreach. I go by he, him pronouns. Just want to provide a brief overview of Police Complaint Review Board is the nation's largest independent oversight entity over the largest police force in the country. The CCRB investigates, mediates, and prosecutes allegations of misconduct alleged against members of the NYPD. The agency is governed by a 15-member board, some of which of members you've met today. That includes members that are appointed by the New York City Mayor, 5 that are appointed by the New York City Council, 3 that are designated by the New York City Police Commissioner, 1 appointed by the New York City Public Advocate, and the chair is jointly appointed by the Mayor and the City Council. The CCRB investigates allegations, and that includes FATO, that's force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, and offensive language. Once again, that helpful acronym is FATO. As previously mentioned, there are various ways to file complaints about police misconduct. 2 of the easier ways are to file online at nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. You could also call the CCRB's hotline at 1-800-341-CCRB or 1-800-341-2272. Remember, if you see footage of misconduct on social media or on news media, you can feel free to file a complaint, even if you are not there in person. The typical handle for the CCRB is at CCRB_NYC. Other ways to file a complaint to the CCRB include calling 311. You can also visit the CCRB's headquarters at 100 Church Street on the 10th floor in Lower Manhattan. You can feel free to direct message or DM the CCRB at Facebook, Instagram, or X or Twitter. You could also feel free to send a letter to the CCRB at 100 Church Street, 10th floor, New York, New York, zip code 10007. You could also file a complaint at a local police precinct. It does not have to be the precinct where the altercation or interaction took place. You can request a self-addressed envelope and a complaint form from a police officer at the front desk, and you can mail that complaint directly to us. If you'd like to request an outreach presentation, feel free to email the outreach unit at outreach@ccrb.nyc.gov. Please remember to follow us on our social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, or X, and Facebook. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Welcome, Board Member Crawford.
thank you. Anybody has any question on Jahi? Anybody has any question? No, okay. We'll now enter into the public comment portion of the meeting. We'll begin with those joining us virtually who would like to make a comment, followed by those who are joining us in person. For those joining virtually, please use the raise your hand feature. Please keep your comments to 4 minutes. Charia, would you please call on the first person?
Thank you, Chair. First, we'll be hearing from Elijah McCormick, followed by Alex from Senator Prasad's office.
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I was here last month. I came to the last month meeting and the same proposed or the same talk about reviewing complaints and asking the citizens to give an oath, swear oath to tell the truth. And I wanted to know, it seems to be like a lot of talk. Is there anything like written that's like a proposal for policy changes to make that happen, or is it just spoken about in the public meetings?
Can I answer that question?
Yes,
Director?
go ahead. Yeah, John.
So if the board were to move forward with this process, it would have to go through the rulemaking process. We expect the mayor's office of operations to inquire in the next few weeks. This is around the time of year where they ask all city agencies what, if any, rulemaking process they are anticipate engaging.
Okay.
We would then respond after talking to the interim chair and making a determination based on his determination whether or not it needed to go to a vote first before we would even respond to that memo. My guess is we would respond saying something very general. We would then come to the board in a public meeting and say, we're about to engage in the rulemaking process. Should we move forward with this policy or another policy? Because the next step would be to have the staff draft rules and send them to the mayor's office of operations and the law department. Once
Okay,
those, sorry, Mr. McCormick, do you mind if I just finish and we'll give you some extra time?
Yes, appreciate it.
So after the mayor's office of operations and the law department sign off on the language in the proposed rules, then they are posted on our website and there's a public comment period. Following the public comment period, there is a public meeting, which may be a separate meeting, a standalone meeting, or it may be one of these public meetings in which there's an opportunity for the public to be heard and for the board to discuss the proposed rule changes. If the board determines that they want to make changes to the proposed rules that are of a substantive nature, we would have to restart the process by making the changes the board wants and then resending them to the law department and mayor's office of operations, having those new proposed rules get approved by those two entities, repost online, and then have more public comment and another public meeting, and then vote. Or at the end of the public meeting, the board can determine to vote on the proposed rules. Not that I've been studying, but I learned this pretty well. In order to get the rules passed, you need a majority of the board if it was fully seated. So even though right now we are not there are not a full 15 board members, you still need 8 board members to vote in favor of the rule change for it to be enacted. Sorry, Mr. McCormick. I don't know who's keeping time, but if you could give Mr. McCormick some extra time,
Yes,
I would
sir.
appreciate it.
There's nothing on the table.
Oh, we should
right.
have Marcus talk up.
This is discussion.
But
Yes, thank you. I do have another question, man. 50a50-a.org. I look, after receiving my own situation I had with police officers, I started looking up, officers, like the amount of officers who have substantiated charges against them, and I'm starting to see like there's some officers up there that been in the department for a long time, recently been promoted, and they have 160, 120 something allegations, 60 substantiated. Is there any proactive ability for the board to do when it comes to be proactive about making sure these officers are not continuing to be able to serve the people when they obviously have been abusing their power for years?
The The short answer is no. The police commissioner is the final arbiter of police discipline. And once this board makes a recommendation, the police disciplinary process is independent of ours. And the police commissioner has the power to promote people under the civil service rules that she sees fit.
Here's one last question, sir. I'm sorry. I don't want to hold anybody else too long, but it's one last sort of personal question. I had put a complaint in where it was multiple officers' names listed. It was two officers actually, and one was part of the complaint, which was one officer was sent to the APU for for a trial, not yet posted, but the other officer, I haven't received any notice about it, but I look up on 50-a.org and notice that her complaint has been substantiated and no penalty was given. And it wasn't like wasn't notified by me. So when I asked for a FOIA request, I put in a FOIA request for NYPD, and they notified me that I have to go to CCRB. And when I asked CCRB about it, they pretty much, who was involved in my case, they pretty much were saying like they don't know nothing about it either. And I'm worrying that that case has been under the Commissioner Caban situation, and I might have been just swept under the rug. This officer receiving no penalty for a substantiated charge without any consideration of the victim, or not, or no notice to CCRB, nor the person who put the complaint in. How can I go about, knowing who actually made that decision, and how to argue that decision?
So, Mr. McCormick, if you can hold on, we're gonna have, I think it's probably best handled by someone from IT, not one of our investigators, if they could just chat with you and,
Yes.
and get your contact information, because we'll look up the case and get you the information you need.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
With regard to the issue of what you can do, I think unfortunately, at this point, there's probably very little for the officer who the disciplinary decision was already made, because the police commissioner is the final arbiter of disciplinary measures. And then the third thing isn't really a response to your question, but just to let folks know, 50a.org is not, call us or email us, and we'll reach back out and try and get you answers as best we can.
Thank you for your time.
Are you getting in touch with Mr. McCormick, or is someone getting? Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we'll be hearing from Alex from Senator Prasad's office, followed by Andrew Case.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Alex. I represent Senator Roxanne J. Prasad, District 19, Brooklyn and parts of Queens. I just have a very quick question, and I will give my time. So during the conversation on how CCRB would like to process complaints that are unfounded in the realm of nothing being substantiated, as one of the board members stated that if the camera didn't catch it, it would be processed and they would be charged for it. In terms of that topic, I would like to know what is the proposal, what is the specific process that would be followed, that would be had to identify if they maliciously brought forward claims that didn't exist? What would be the process to verify that this is the case? What resources would be needed, and just overall, just a guideline on how CCRB would process that if it was to be passed, just in specifics. Excuse me, I'm sorry, is there audio? I can't hear, I don't think.
I might not have been loud enough. I apologize. So Alex, the truth is we have not gotten far enough in this process to have answers to your questions. If the CCRB decides to engage in the rulemaking process to change the rules in this fashion, those are clearly questions that we would have to answer.
Is there, and I apologize, I know I said I would yield my time. Is there any way we could have an answer to that? So that way, you know, everyone, elected officials, and we could, I could present this to the senator. Again, this question is not reflective of her opinions, but for documentation purposes, and so the public is aware what that would look like, if something like that were to be implemented.
Alex, I'm going to have Maura Rehe, our director of intergovernmental relations, reach out to you and make sure that you're kept abreast and that other elected officials are kept abreast of what the CCRB is doing with its rules. But I just want to say it's these, as we just said to Mr. McCormick, right now, this is just conversation. There has been, there's nothing formal that has been proposed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next person on.
Next, we'll be hearing from Andrew Case.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, hi. I can't see my, maybe I need to click this for video. There we go. Andrew Case, supervising counsel at Latino Justice ProLDEF. Thank you so very much to the CCRB for your work in the Jonathan Rivera matter and the prosecution of Lieutenant Rivera for the death of Alan Feliz. I think you should think of that as a great success. Judge Maldonado, as you know, has recommended that Lieutenant Rivera be fired. That is in no small part due to this agency's really long devoted work on that case. And I just, want to make sure that we say good things about what's going on at the CCRB when good things are happening. Welcome to Board Member Crawford. A big fan of Center for Justice Innovation, and I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time in the board. I remember being at the theater above the Midtown Community Court 25 years ago doing plays in another life. So I am going to talk about this swearing of an oath. This is something that periodically comes up. It is extremely detrimental to the complaint process to give people the impression who are already coming forward with the risk of complaining about law enforcement to be told that if they complain in the wrong way, or the authorities decide that they're lying, or the investigator doesn't believe them, then they're going to be prosecuted for perjury. We are in a country right now where the federal government was arguing in court today that people can be revoked of their student visa and their green card for political rallies. People are going to be afraid to come and complain. And yeah, your complaint numbers will go down. But last month, the reason for the proposal was that it just made police officers feel bad to have a complaint open against them when it hasn't been resolved. So the reasoning is not always what it seems to be. The reasoning is to deter people from expressing their discomfort, fear, and abuse at the hands of the New York Police Department. And this board exists to find out when people have been mistreated and abused by the New York Police Department. And if you did 2,500 complaints and had 900 substantiations, that's actually a very high number historically for the CCRB. That's showing that you're doing your job. You're finding misconduct when it's out there. You prosecuted Jonathan Rivera for killing Alan Feliz, and it would be really a shame to undo this incredible progress and this incredible work by trying to deter people from complaining about police misconduct by making them sign an oath. It's it's a much scarier process to go through than sort of it gets described as, oh, they just have to sign an oath. People know that that means that there's someone out there who will decide they did something wrong and punish them, and they already have been through that experience. Okay, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I will say I looked at your monthly report. It looks like your substantiation rates are strong, and that's good. You had 1,400 cases awaiting board review. As you know, I think that if you revised your rules, you should be revising the rules to limit or eliminate board panel review of cases. I know you need board members, but you are taking a lot of time doing that when you should be discussing these great big policy issues, and you have the ability to change that rule as well. Thank you all so very much, and I look forward to seeing you next month.
Very much. We appreciate your sentiments about the Rivera case, and I applaud the APU unit for doing such a tremendous job of we are hoping now that it's with the other authorities to make a decision. And I truly believe that that it should be a good decision as it has gone through a trial. So we'll see what happens, but we'll keep on doing the best job we can. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. Next online.
Next, we'll be hearing from Lindsay Smith, followed by Joss.
Hi, good afternoon. Oh, camera's a little funny.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name is Lindsay Smith. I'm a staff attorney with the Legal Aid Society's Cop Accountability Project. One thing our unit does is help legal aid clients navigate their options when they've experienced police misconduct. So that can be helping them file CCRB complaints, among other things. I want to respond as well to this editorial from the Post proposing that complainants should be required to swear under oath that their complaints under threat of perjury. We really strongly oppose this proposition. Our work with clients has shown us firsthand that speaking up about police misconduct can be really intimidating and traumatic for clients. This additional requirement would be unnecessary. It would also be a procedural burden that would intimidate complainants and discourage them from coming forward with their experiences. I know some board members mentioned this already, but given that only 565 of these CCRBs, over 5,600 complaints last year were deemed unfounded, this argument that this step is needed to protect officers from frivolous complaints is really unpersuasive. That's what the unfounded disposition itself addresses, that possibility that the complaint is without merit. I also just wanted to bring to the board's attention that this is something that has been tried in at least one other jurisdiction. There's a report by the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement published in 2021 that actively advises against this practice because of its chilling effect. That report also discusses that the Department of Justice actually investigated the Chicago Police Department, and that jurisdiction's kind of CCRB equivalent had a policy of only investigating misconduct complaints with a sworn affidavit. That DOJ investigation found, quote, that this creates a tremendous disincentive to come forward with legitimate claims. It keeps hidden serious police misconduct that should be investigated. It also resulted in the closure of about 40% of complaints to that oversight body. So just for these accepted best practices, the CCRB's complaint process should really be as simple and barrier-free as possible. Making the process more burdensome and adding a threat of criminal prosecution to an already emotionally loaded process is going to have no effect other than deterring members of the public from coming forward, reducing the CCRB's ability to investigate these individual instances of alleged misconduct and identify broader trends in the public interest. So thank you to the board for this opportunity. Appreciate that I may be repeating some points that other folks have made, but just wanted to chime in here and state that we really would oppose this proposition.
I've heard the board members, most of us are with you, what you said, so hopefully we'll work on this and make sure that public interest is protected.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Next, we'll be hearing from Joss from the Office of Community Liaison, followed by Doyen.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Is that Josmore?
Yes, this is Josmore.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, good to see you and hear from you, Mr. Darsh. Hi everyone, my name is Josmore Trujillo. I'm the senior organizer at the Office of Community Liaison. Our office works alongside the federal monitor that oversees the police department in regards to police encounters and trespassing enforcement. It's great to see some familiar faces. Congratulations, Ms. Crawford. It's been great to connect with so many of the CJI programs across the city, and we look forward to doing that in 2025. I actually, first, I also wanted to thank members of the outreach team, Jahai Rose, Natasha, Tim, and a few others. We've really had the pleasure of connecting with them and collaborating them out in the field to do outreach for the last, I want to say, year and a half, 2 years, and it's been great. We've been able to do events with Jahai, and I recently did an event with Natasha out in Far Rockaway that was great. So I just wanted to thank the outreach team for all the hard work that they do. Second, I just had a specific question. I don't know if this has been raised. I haven't been to a board meeting in a few months, but just some concerns we had heard out in the field in terms of when a member of the public files a complaint and the CCRB deems it isn't within its jurisdiction, and then it's passed to possibly a member of the internal affairs unit, or even the commanding officer of the precinct for which the complaint was filed. I've heard that once before with a friend, but I've also heard that from a colleague who has heard concerns in the community that they'll get phone calls from NYPD or from a detective so-and-so after they filed a complaint. And there was concerns that, they're filing a complaint with the CCRB, but then the police department will have their number and call them, which can be startling to people. So I wanted to ask what the process was, because I know sometimes you guys have to refer to other places if it's not in your jurisdiction, and that may be IAB or that may even be a commanding officer. But I wasn't aware of that, and I just wanted to know if that's the process still, or if there's any intention to changing that.
John, go ahead, Billy.
So if the complaint is within our jurisdiction, then we don't refer it to NYPD until the conclusion of an investigation. And in those cases, only when there is the board substantiates misconduct so that the police department can initiate a disciplinary case against the member of service. When we get complaints that are entirely out of our jurisdiction, we refer all of them to the appropriate entity, which, if the person being complained about is within the NYPD, we send to internal affairs. Sometimes internal affairs looks at the allegations and refers it to one of numerous different units in the NYPD, including sometimes the integrity control officer or the commanding officer of the member of service who has been complained about. What is trickier is when people file complaints and some of the allegations are within the CCRB's jurisdiction and some of them are outside our jurisdiction. So in those complaints, in those instances, the CCRB is going to reach out to the civilian and get their statement and proceed to investigate the allegations that are within our jurisdiction. And then the NYPD is going to investigate the allegations that are in their jurisdiction that are not in the CCRB's jurisdiction.
Okay. All right. I wanted to flag it because, from a community point of view, and we're just reiterating their concerns to us. There's like a concern that the people that they're filing the complaint about are like aware of their contact information or even their names and stuff. And that from a community point of view was communicated to us that is like startling. I definitely wanted to just ask and double check to make sure I can just explain what the process is in case we come up with that again. But thanks, Mr. Darsh, and thanks everyone. And hope to see you guys at the next board meeting.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate that. Next, Yohara.
The last person we'll be hearing from is Doyen Adiko.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. I really appreciate your accountability of service to the community, and All I just want to say is that I have a pending issue. Last year I came to report an issue that when a landlord is harassing me, stalking, I called the police, they did not, show up. So I came, I complained, I received AIB number and CCRB number. So lately I called the number they gave to me, the AIB number, I made a call. They referred me back to CCRB that, they didn't have the information in their system. So I'm, very surprised. I could have come, in person, but I lost my dad today. That's why I couldn't come. So it's still, the issue is still pending.
Mr. Adewaba, I'm sorry for your loss. There's no problem with you appearing virtually today. What I'm going to ask is that you hold on, and I'm not sure if this is best handled by someone from the investigations team or the folks who are online right now, but we will A, make sure you have the information, that we sent the information to IAB, and B, we will then follow up with IAB to make sure. Thank you. So just so everyone knows, IAB stands for Internal Affairs Bureau, which is the NYPD's unit that investigates complaints about corruption and misconduct within the NYPD. It is the largest and most important it's a value judgment. The largest and most well-known of the internal disciplinary investigative units at the department. And so we should be able to make sure that they received your complaint from us, and that they're able to follow up with you and let you know the status of the complaint.
Okay, sir.
So if you could hold on, please. No, like, if you're still talking, but don't jump off the line. I didn't mean to cut you off.
All right. I just want to call up the IAB number so that it will be in a record.
Understood. We'll help you out, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Now we'll go, if the virtual comments conclude, then we'll go to the in-person. Could you please make a line behind the podium so we can listen to your comments? Make sure it's 4 minutes, not more than that.
Doesn't look like there's anyone here who wishes to say anything, Dr. Cody.
Oh. If none, we'll go into old business. Has any old business? None. We have a new business to come before the board? None. Hearing none, I'm going to move now we break into the executive session. The agenda for the executive session is the board will consider 2 full board cases. The executive director will discuss pending personal actions, and the general counsel will provide update and regarding the pending litigations. Is there a motion to adjourn the executive to his executive session?
No move. Second.
Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.